right. I'm always a little nervous when we do live stream that the live stream is actually picking up. So I'm going to say good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on when you're watching and listening to this show. My name is Brenda Muller, and I'm joined today by Shannon Russell. Hey, Shannon, how are you doing today?
Great, Brenda. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. Thank you for joining. And I think we may be getting just a little hiccup of an audio delay. Usually the streaming software works it out throughout and we'll make do on it. But while we're getting started, I want to welcome our audience for anyone who's joining us and watching us, whether you're watching live or in playback. Right now I'm streaming to LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. So if you could drop in comments and let us know where in the world and what network you're watching from, that would be great. That lets us know that the live stream is picking up and that the broadcast is being seen by our audience. And I switched over recently to Restream. We were talking about this in the pre-show, Shannon, and I'm still a little bit uncomfortable with where everything is at in here. So if our audience is watching, you can help me by leaving a comment because then I can see if the comments are coming into the chat and I can start pulling them up on screen. So don't be shy. Drop your comments in here. That lets us know the live stream is picking up. While we are doing that, I want to give Shannon the floor. And Shannon, you and I met through Adam Shively's podcast. I think he calls it his Pod Pails Party, a Zoom call where we introduced each other, ourselves, I should say, got to know each other. And we were both like, "Ooh, she'd be a great person to chat with sometime." So I immediately said, "You should come on my show." And then I also heard of you from my good friend Annette Richmond. I'll give her a shout out and tag her in the comments in a second here. So I know a little bit about you, but I'd like it if you could introduce yourself, tell us your name, the name of your business, who do you help, and anything else you'd like to share.
Thanks. Yes, Adam and Annette are so awesome for connecting us. I'm Shannon Russell. My business is Second Act Success, and I am a career transition and business coach, helping women mostly transition from a job that they might not be so happy in into launching a business so they can find fulfillment in their second act.
Wonderful. And we're going to be talking all about this today. I see some comments are starting to roll in out, which is awesome.
Mhm.
So you can see up on screen here, I'm going to be rotating in some different banners and things as we're going along. But today's topic, Shannon's going to be talking about leaving corporate and launching a business. So as we get into this conversation, I'm pretty confident, Shannon, that you chose this topic because this is what you did. You left corporate and launched your own business. So why don't you first start by telling a bit about that journey and where you are today?
Thanks. Yes. So I began my career in television. So I was a television producer for about 16 years, working in New York City and Los Angeles, loving it. It was my dream job. And then I had a family. I started having kids and I realized that it was a lot. My husband's a producer as well. So we were traveling often, working long hours. And after the birth of my second son, I had an aha moment of how can I do this? We were living about 90 minutes outside of New York City at the time. And it was a long commute with a 3 year old and a newborn on the way. And I just had this epiphany of what else can I do with my experience and my skills? And that's when everything kind of changed. And I went through the process of really trying to reinvent myself in my second act. And I ended up launching my first business, which was a franchise at the time. So getting into business and really realizing that my skills did transfer, and just that was a whole discovery process.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, it's, when you leave corporate, your identity is so wrapped into what you did in corporate and you worked in TV in corporate. So was your initial thought like I'm going to do something related to what I did in corporate, or did you pivot just for the lifestyle that you were looking for?
It was mostly for the lifestyle because I was on set, I was writing scripts and directing shoots and traveling, so I honestly didn't see that correlation to actually be doing that anywhere else, and when I moved to the suburbs in New Jersey, I was looking for production companies in the area, and there everything was in Manhattan, so I realized unless I wanted that commute, I couldn't really do something similar outside of Manhattan, and so then I started thinking about what else can I do? And one day I was just looking at my 3 year old and he was building with Legos and he was just in his zone with the imagination. And that's when I was like, maybe there's something to this where I can build something that's children's based and have the kids with me and build this from home and not have to miss birthdays and Halloween and all of the good stuff. And then I ended up opening a franchise that was STEM education. So it really was a chance for me to be home with the kids and be that present mom I wanted to be, but use my producing skills to produce and grow a business. So that was what I did in my first act out of television.
So you say first act, and then I know you know, second act is a theme that you use as well. So tell us a little bit about that. What do you see as it sounds like there's multiple paths and maybe we shouldn't just get so stuck in that first path, but tell us a little bit more about that.
We definitely shouldn't, and I've looked at it I decided to look at it like I wasn't leaving my dream job, I was checking the box on it, and I was saying, "Okay, what else can I do in this one life that we're given? Let me think about the grander picture, and let me look at it like a lifelong resume, and let me just build onto this." And so I said, "Okay, let's start a business," and as I was in that business, I was like, wow, I'm really growing it. And I grew that franchise to be in the top 3 to 5 franchises of the whole company. So I said,
Wow.
wow, I really can do this. And then some of my customers would say, "Oh, you must have been a wonderful teacher. What grade did you teach?" And that would spark the conversation. And I was like, "No, I'm a television producer." And so then they started saying, "Well, can you help me change careers so that I don't have to do this long commute into the city? And, the career I picked at 22 doesn't fit me now that I'm a mom." And I started helping customers and I started helping friends. And I said, there's something to this. And that's when I launched Second Act Success, my coaching practice, because I realized that there were so many women like me that felt stuck, but didn't know how to make that change in a way that wasn't going to disrupt their family.
I love it, and I
Yeah.
you just said some really magical words. I didn't even realize it was for me, it led me to what I'm doing today as well. Can you help me? Like,
Mm.
people saw in you something that, like, "Wow, she's great at this. She could probably teach me how to do this." And I have to share a little quick backstory. I was having some tech issues just before we were starting today, and my 19-year-old son's upstairs, and I called him downstairs. I'm like, "Joshua, come help me. Can you help me with this computer thing?" And he's like, "Just reboot it and restart." And it was fine afterwards. I think those are magical words, "Can you help me?" Which might open up a path that you never envisioned. Would you agree? And what are your thoughts there?
1,000%, right? Like, allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to say, "I can't do this the way I want to, so who can I go to that can help?" And for me, I did that transition completely by myself. I was alone. I had all of my friends, including my husband, saying, "Why are you leaving this job? You love
Mhm.
this. People would kill for this position. Why are you doing that?" And I just said, "I'm done. I achieved what I wanted. So let me figure out the next step." And then to be able to help other people figure out how they can do that too and add on to their career in a different way, being their own boss and really feeling that achievement of being able to do it. I wanted to be that person that I didn't have when I left out of my corporate career. I wanted to be that supporter to say, "You can do it, and I'll show you how." Because we need that sometimes, and we have to admit that. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, I love it, and there's so many things that you're saying I can really relate to, and I'm guessing our audience can as well. If you agree with the things that Shannon's saying, don't be shy, go into to chat and just say agree as well. Things like, wrapping our identity around our corporate life, and also when you leave corporate, you have to you let go of it yourself first before I think your friends and your family let go of that association. And it's almost like, and I remember when I did it, the only two people who were really questioning me were my husband and probably my mother-in-law, my dad maybe too. Why are you leaving corporate? Why are you leaving this successful corporate job and doing this? And my husband's was more concerned because he's like, if you're self-employed, it's 100% commission. You only make money if you make money. That to me has always propelled me. It's never been a risky thing for me. It's always been like, yeah, but I'm in control of this. Is that
Mhm.
a bit of your mindset as well, or talk to us about that?
Yes, but I think mine might be different because in the entertainment industry, everything is freelance and for the most
Mm,
part, so my husband and I have always gone from project to project our entire career. So it wasn't scary in that sense of when I decided to not pick up the phone and get my next TV job. I said, okay, well, then I just have to make this next step work. So yeah, it propelled me like you in saying, I can do this. And it's almost that challenge of like, let's figure this out and let's make this work because we have to. Sometimes
mm,
it's easy to stay in the stable and the secure, but if it's not fulfilling us, then at the end of the day, to me, I look at it as almost wasted time, right? Like let's find that next adventure and make it work. And that kind of fuels that fire under you to actually figure out how to make it successful.
yeah, I love it. And we're here today talking about leaving corporate and launching a business. So when these women came to you and said, "Can you help me, figure out," did they know what they wanted to do? And, how do you work with people to help them to figure out what is the right business if you're going to launch your own business?
Yeah, that's a great question because not everyone does know. And I've had clients in the past that have come with like a list of 10 different ideas, and it's up to us to really research those ideas, see what fits with your lifestyle, and cross off whatever doesn't and narrow it down. I remember there was one kind of friend that I knew in the area that was really desperate to leave her very, very successful job in New York City. And she
Mhm.
knew what she wanted. And she used that commute to study for her certification she needed to start that business.
Mm,
And
cool.
I had already transitioned at the time and I said, "Wow, that's 90 minutes up and 90 minutes back that I wasted all those years listening to
Mm,
music and reading books, but you're studying for something." So she really took the hours that she had and made it worth her while. And she was able to leave that business or that corporate job and start her business locally and be closer to her family as well. So I think there's ways of either whether you know or whether you don't, that you have to work towards figuring out if it will work and fit into your life. So there's
yeah,
work to be done either way.
yeah, right. And I hear you talking a lot about, you enjoying what you're doing. Does it fit into your lifestyle? Um, it sounds like that's a really important element. Would you say that's the case for if you have a family as well, or is it, for anyone who's single and maybe doesn't have kids as well?
I think it's for anyone because I always look at it like if you're leaping out of something that might be secure, that maybe you do enjoy something that you know to go somewhere else, you want to make sure that you're not just leaping into the same situation somewhere else, right? You don't want to start a business and end up starting, buying yourself a job. You don't want to leave from a career into something else and just be as miserable. So to
Yeah.
really do that research and make sure that you're confident, 1,000% confident, because if you can portray that confidence, then you're making your family around you feel confident with your decision, and you're just moving ahead to build that business confidently, so that it does succeed, and you're not just doing it kind of half and half, not really feeling like it's 100% what it is that you want to do. So yeah, I feel like it's so easy to just say, I want to quit, give my notice, and jump into it. But for me, I think whether you have a family at home that you're taking care of or not, that you want to be methodical and really researching that next step first.
Yeah. And being happy with what you're doing because there's nobody over your shoulder saying you need to be motivated today to do this. You need to do networking or you need to go on podcasts or
Mhm.
interviews or you need to try different things, right?
Right.
And I call this series enthusiastically self-employed. And for me, Shannon, I have never looked back. In the beginning, when I first left corporate, it wasn't by choice. I chose the timeline and I was looking for another full-time job in marketing, and people were saying, "Since you have some time, can you help me?" The approaches started from there, and it was probably 3 months into it when I started to really lean into it, and then by January of the following year, I was fully committed to and I've never looked back. I've never looked at the job board since then. Have you had any points in time where you've been like, "Maybe I should return to my corporate job," during your journey, and how long have you been doing this now?
I had my first franchise business for 8 years. I sold it just a few months ago because I had started my coaching business almost 3 years ago. So I was running both at the same time, and I really wanted to focus on the coaching. So I sold my first business. Now I'm solely in my coaching. And the only time I would go back to producing is if Oprah called. I always say that. I'm like, she is the one person I never worked with that I really wanted to. But I always look at it too, Brenda, and same with you, is that those skills come with us. So
Mhm.
we can always go back. We can always go back and do that role again. And it's nice to think about that because that change is scary, but knowing you're still that person too. So yeah, if a friend called and said, "Can you come help me on this shoot?" I could go and do it and I'd probably have a great time. But no, I've never wanted to go back to doing it full time. Definitely not.
Yeah. And be self-employed as well, doesn't it, Shannon? And talk to us about like if somebody is thinking, maybe there's someone who's a corporate employee, maybe they're watching this live or they're watching this in the playback or even listening to this on the podcast later, and they have a little inkling in the back of their mind, like maybe someday I'll leave corporate and go on my own. But what would you say are the skills that you need to be self-employed?
I think it's that ambition and that drive of just wanting to check those boxes. I always come back to like, what do you want to accomplish? And I think you have to have that drive of saying, I think I can do it. And I don't want to wonder 30 years from now if I could have tried. I think regret is a very powerful thing. And why not at least try, dabble in it, do it as a side job, a side hustle, and if it doesn't work out, then that's a great thing too to find out, right? Like it's kind of like doing an internship back in college. If you intern somewhere and you're like, this is not for me. I interned in news and I said, I don't want to report on horrible things all the time. And I shifted into entertainment, more fun pop culture stuff, because that's what filled me up more. But I learned during that internship not to pursue and spend more time working towards working in news. And so I think if you start a side hustle and you're working towards it and you're like, I don't really like this, I don't like dealing with customers, clients, then you can check it off and say you tried and you can go back to the corporate job and feel, secure there. But at least you've tried.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've had different experiences being self-employed, operating a franchise business. Were you subject to rules of the franchise organization or did they give you guidance or training, I should say, instead of rules? Did they help to provide some more guidance whereas now you're kind of flying without the safety net being solo? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of franchise because it's that reason. Like, I was looking to start my own business from scratch when I came across a franchise that had like everything I was looking for. And I wanted that kind of business in a box, if you will,
Mhm.
to give me that support. And it was incredible because I've some of my best friends are other owners of that business that I talk to all day, every day. And we still support each other. And so I think that is something you don't get when you go completely on your own. And for me, I learned so much about business that I could take that now and run with my business, my soul business, with that level of confidence. But I think you can do the same thing with networking, right? Like you and I know so many of the same people. You can go out and meet other people that are in that industry and learn and kind of find those accountability partners and those mentors or coaches that can help you along the way too. So don't let it deter you from starting completely on your own.
And what are you doing now to educate yourself? I mean, you talked about accountability partners. Do you attend conferences for entrepreneurs? Are you kind of self-taught? You follow, when something appeals to you, or do you make it a concerted effort to have like education and training for your business to be a part of what you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I read a ton of books. I'm in 2 masterminds right now. I have a business coach. So I'm all about the learning all the time. I go to podcast conferences every year just to meet other people in the space. And yeah, it's really like I'm in several groups. I'm right in the process of finishing a book. So I'm in a group for my book. So it's just whatever areas I feel like I need that little bit of guidance, I will join a program or I'll hire a coach, because I don't want to ever feel like I've gotten to a level where I know everything because that's just not possible. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
think I always say I'm like, I am a coach and I have a coach. So I think it's important to, always keep bettering yourself and learning more.
I love it. And I'm going to lean in on the microphone on this one. This is like a little secret. I don't tell everyone this. So anybody who's watching or listening to the playback that you'll learn. What I do is similar to Shannon. I have a this show, which is live on LinkedIn. It goes on YouTube. It's also on my podcast. Sometimes I do solo episodes. Sometimes I do interview style. What I do selfishly is I handpick people that I think I'm going to learn from. I know my audience will learn from, and, it's kind of the power of leveraging people in your network, and I feel like we have similar energy levels, we vibe together, so to speak.
Yeah.
So when I saw you on Adam's call, and then Annette, I think the world of Annette as well. When she recommended, I'm like, okay, I got to have Shannon on my show. She's a great person. And, we're here today talking about leaving corporate and launching a business. Both of us have done this. And I think about sometimes the common experiences that we share. There's still some differences. It's almost like looking through a kaleidoscope, and your experience of leaving corporate, starting a business is slightly different than mine, and there's some similarities. So when I ask questions like this, when you said you are in two masterminds, you work with a coach, I would encourage anyone, if you're thinking about working with a coach or learning from someone who is self-employed, ask them that question. How are you continuing to learn? Because they should be. I believe in the power as well. I belong to a couple different group cohorts and programs where I'm learning from other people. John Aspirian, he has a great community called Espresso Plus that I'm in. Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy, she's got a great momentum group that I'm a part of. Annette and I are going to become accountability partners, helping with ourselves with our course launches. But you just kind of reminded me of why part of the reason I do this show. Do you do the same thing with your podcast, or do you do like, are they solo episodes or interviews, or tell us a little bit about your podcast if you could?
Yeah, I love that so much. I got chills when you said that because it's so similar of just, like, finding those people to surround yourself with and learn from. I like to have people on my show, and I'd love to have you, Brenda, as we talked about, just to
Great.
talk about their story so that listeners can say, "Oh, if she went from this job and now she's owning this business, I can do it too." So I have a lot of stories of women who have changed their careers, started a second act, and then I do solo episodes too. But just last night, I was sitting on the couch with the kids and I messaged this girl who I listened to her podcast about growing an Etsy shop. I do not have an Etsy shop, but I have this secret desire to build one because I love Etsy. And I messaged her and she immediately wrote me back and said she wants to be on my show. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I told her that I would fangirl out because I listen to her all the time. And it was just like you said, I learned from her in her podcast, and now she's going to come and teach my listeners about how to grow an Etsy shop as their second act business. So yeah, bring those people on and learn from them. And it's just then we're just in each other's network and we can keep introducing each other to other people and we just keep learning and growing. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit. I'm going to add this to the screen as well in case someone wants to look at it. It's called Second Success is the name of your podcast. Is that right?
Second Act Success Career
Oh,
Podcast.
here it is.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to it. I realized this morning, I'm like, "I can't believe I'm not already listening to this." So I added it to my podcast player, and I think my phone was having some issues, so I was listening to it on my laptop, and I'll be adding it in as soon as Apple kinda picks up that I wanna start following your show here. But you've got a lot of different, variety of different topics on your show, and different people that you're interviewing in here, so really looking forward to that. What I'd
Oh,
like to do now, Shannon, is we're gonna change gears, and we're gonna bring our audience into the conversation. So I'll just invite our audience, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask of Shannon. Maybe you are thinking about leaving corporate and starting your own business, getting into being self-employed. We'd love to hear your questions. Don't be shy. Drop your questions into chat. And I also see there's a few other folks that have picked up with us and that are watching us here on LinkedIn. We see Christy Williams. Thank you so much for joining us, Christy. We appreciate you being here with us. And I also see, I think this is on LinkedIn, Mikey Flora. So hello, Mikey. Thank you for watching us. And I think we are live on Instagram, my Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube through my channels. And I think we're on your YouTube and LinkedIn as well. Is that right, Shannon?
we should be. Yep, definitely LinkedIn, hopefully YouTube.
Okay, fingers crossed. And I don't know because I'm
Mhm.
not a heavy, heavy user of Restream. So if maybe somebody's watching this and they know, if my guest, like Shannon, is streaming it to her from Restream to her accounts and someone drops a comment, do the comments come into my stream? I think they would. Uh, that would be, I mean, if I were to do that through StreamYard, I think they would all come in through the one stream, like through the host stream. What do you think though, Shannon? Do you think they would come in or would you have to
I would think
navigate them?
so. I would think so
Yeah.
just because I linked in the live stream through your restream, so that would be
Right.
my assumption.
So challenge, if
hopefully.
someone's watching this from one of Shannon's streams, go into comments and say, "I'm watching from Shannon's live stream from her account," because then that'll help me to kind of suss this out. I use these sometimes, Shannon, as like a test for these types of things. So if someone is in comments, they can let us know. If we were in the audience, I'd be able to, tap my microphone and wave at people on the stage. In a live stream setting, we have to use comments as our way of getting up audience engagement from that. So and I know there's a little bit of delay from the time that I say drop your questions in now to the time that they type it in, and then we see those things on screen. So I'm buying us a little bit of time in on the process. As we are waiting for those to come in, let me ask a couple more questions of my own. If you were to go back to the days when you just got started with, your franchise business, is there anything you would have done differently, knowing what you know today?
You know what? I would have spent money sooner in a sense. And I think a lot of business owners probably do the same thing where you want to hold on to everything, you want to do everything right away. And for me, I feel like when you can put a little bit of money, even if it's hiring an assistant or paying for a few ads early on that don't cost a whole lot of money, but at least help you branch out, you'll see your growth a little bit faster. And I think with my franchise business, I taught every class and I just had my hands in everything because I wanted to learn it all, but I also just was afraid of the money aspect. And yeah, I think that if I were to do it again, I would just have that faith in myself and take whatever money was coming into the business and just put it into employees and other, ways to
I love
support and grow faster. What do you think?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I feel like every time I have made an investment in my business, whether it's enrolling in an online program or a training program, and sometimes they're not cheap. I remember there was one program I signed up, it was $1,000 per month, and I could have like done the pay in full and saved, a few thousand, but I was like at the time I'm like, I don't know if I can pay more than that. So I went the $1,000 a month route, but I made my money back in 3 months for the entire year. Like what I invested in the program, I made it back. And there's a saying that if you pay attention. So I think sometimes when people are looking at starting off, they're looking for a lot of free resources, free webinars, free podcasts, and things that they watch. But I think when you start investing, you get the structure and the support that goes along with it. And when you pay attention. What are your thoughts on that?
Mhm. Oh my gosh, absolutely. I find the same way, the same thing. I'm actually doing a free master class this afternoon, and I know the amount of people who signed up will not be the amount of people who actually show up because it is free. And that's always the way. But when you're paying, you pay attention, like you said, and you're going to be there. And it's almost a way, even if it's not a whole lot of money, if it's just a little bit, you are invested and you are going to get your money's worth. So yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's worth every penny when you're betting on yourself and trying to learn and grow faster.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like you've got a couple different ways that you're marketing your business. Word of mouth is it sounds like that's a huge one for you, but is your podcast also a source of either leads coming into your business or referral sources? How does your podcast work in conjunction with what you're doing for your business?
Yes, I get a lot of clients through the podcast, just people who wouldn't have known me otherwise. I actually did a limited series podcast a few months ago. So that's another lead magnet where it's just like a 20 episode How to Quit Your Job and Start a Business podcast. So
Oh,
yeah, I use it for that. And then just to meet other people like you. And now, we have different connections that can help each other down the road. So yeah, that's how I use it. And then I have a book coming out in 2025, hopefully by March or April, and that'll be another way to reach more people. So I'm always trying to find different ways of getting out there.
well, congratulations. What's the name of your book?
It's called Start Your Second Act, and it's really just how to go from kind of what we're discussing today, and really how to start that second act in a way that's not just quitting and figuring it out later, but doing it methodically.
I love it. Okay, great. We did get a question coming in from Alberto. Thank you so much for joining us here, Alberto. And I'm going to read the question because this will be on the podcast later on as well. He says, "Thanks for the discussion. I heard you say that you should find something that you enjoy. What is your recommendation if you have different ideas and love many of them?" What do you think, Shannon?
Great question. I think it's just a matter of researching each. So, really kind of doing an old fashioned pros and cons in a sense, but writing down those ideas that you do have and researching what would a business look like with this passion. So if you're interested in golf and you're thinking about, starting a golf business or teaching golf, just as an example, researching what other businesses are out there, doing that market research. Because while you do that research on each of those different ideas, you might say, oh, you know what, there's aspects of that that I don't love. And then you can check that off and kind of narrow it down. So really just doing that research, seeing what else is out there and seeing what the need in the market is. If you can find that niche, and it's a passion of yours, then that's the best way to go, in my opinion.
Love it. And he added some clarification too. He's saying, this is from Alberto. He's saying, I need to narrow my business more since I do training, consulting, and coaching, spreading myself a bit too thin. And when my first reaction when reading that, Alberto, and I don't know about you, Shannon, but I'm like, well, I do training, consulting, and coaching. I do a little bit of all of the above as well. I enjoy it, but I think there have been times in my business where I've said, I'm not going to do this service anymore. This is not something that brings me joy anymore. What are your thoughts there on that comment?
I think we do that often, right? We want a niche, a niche, a niche, and that's the way to grow. But then it's hard if you do have a little bit of enjoyment in all those aspects. So I agree with Brenda. Like just seeing which of those three aspects that you mentioned is something that is your least favorite offering, and maybe you can slowly take that off of your offerings plate, your services that you do offer, and maybe continue them with people who already work with you, but not offer them down the road in the future, and see how your business looks if you're just focusing on one or two of those.
And I'm curious, Shannon, when I first started my business, I was doing like anything that people would pay me for. And maybe yours was a little different because you were doing the franchise and there's a certain suite of products or services you're doing. But when you were self employed, working as a coach, would you do any project, any request that came to you? And did you become more selective? That's what I did, but I'm curious about what your approach looked like.
Same with me. I started off just saying, actually up until maybe 6 months ago, I was helping women change careers and find a different career or starting a business. And I started realizing that everyone I was getting, or a lot of majority, were women who wanted to start a business. So I started niching down, and that's my main focus of who I help. And I can also do resume reviews and things like that, but I don't advertise that unless a current client is asking me for that. So yeah, just kind of instead of saying I can serve everyone, having a list of what I market and advertise myself for, and really feeling confident in those aspects, like you said, instead of just offering everything under the sun.
Yeah, I think once you get your bearings a little bit, you start to realize like there's a lot of things that I could sell, but if I sell or offer more of the things that I enjoy doing, and there's also a revenue, line item to that as well, I can actually be more successful. At the beginning of 2020, I decided I wasn't doing social media management and marketing plans and things anymore. I'm like, I'm going all in on LinkedIn. And there was this thing called the pandemic hovering in the horizon that nobody really knew was going to happen. I still made that commitment to going, in on LinkedIn, and I have no regrets with that. Speaking of LinkedIn, I'm going to pull your profile up on screen here, Shannon. And as we start to wind down our conversation, I want to see, are you open to connecting with people on LinkedIn? And if so, do you have any instructions for them?
Oh my gosh, I would love to. Absolutely. So, yeah, no instructions. Just send me a message. And yeah, let's definitely connect. I would love that. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn
Wonderful.
as well.
Oh, good. And I always tell people too, if you're connecting with a guest that's on my show, just mention to Shannon that you were watching the LinkedIn Live with Brenda. Hoping she'll get a handful coming in, and then she'll remember specifically where you came from, the route that was coming in through there. And I'm also going to, do you want to pull up your website or your podcast page? Which one would be better to show next?
Oh, you can show the website itself. That's secondactsuccess.co.
Okay, let me pull that up on screen here, and then I'll just preload it in here. And as I'm pulling that up, Shannon, if people are interested in doing business with you, tell us a little bit about, what those services look like.
Sure. So I have a course that actually I haven't launched in a little over a year, that I'm launching just this week. So it is the Second Act Accelerator. So that's just a program that's about 3 months long. You come in and we get that business started by the end of it. So it's really that accelerator. So that's my main like course, but it also has one-on-one and group coaching included as well. So it's kind of a hybrid program. And then I do one-on-one coaching all the time. And I have a membership that is more for people who just want that inspiration. They're not ready to leap into the business yet, but they want a community and resources and master classes and some coaching, just to get them that inspiration so that they are or can be ready for their second act soon. And then, of
All
course, the
right, wonderful, and
podcast.
I'll direct people to go to secondactsuccess.co, and I'll be sure to put the link in the playback area as well in case, folks are interested in looking at that. Let me just stop the screen share, I'll bring you back up onto large
Mhm.
screen mode here again, and as we wind down our conversation today, Shannon, do you have any final thoughts for us on leaving corporate and launching a business?
I think if you're thinking about it, start thinking about it and take little action steps right now, because while you're working is the perfect time to start putting those that plan into place because you do have that income coming in. So I think, and I tell my clients quite often, make that timeline of 6 months, a year, 3 months, whatever it might be, and just plot out what you can do so that you're confident both financially and just with what you want to provide your customers or clients, so that you'll be ready to give your notice and officially be self employed. So start now.
I love
Yeah.
great advice, no time like the present. All right, well, as we wrap up our conversation, first of all, Shannon, I want to thank you for coming on. You've given me some great inspiration today. You've reminded me of some things, and you've even sparked something that kind of remembered about the value of training and masterminds and things like that. So I want to thank you for that and for spending the time here with me today.
Thank you, Brenda. This is great.
All right. And for anyone who is watching, if you enjoyed this segment today, we'd love it if you could share this video and or podcast along, depending on if you're watching it or listening to this later. And if you do share this online on LinkedIn or any other network, be sure to tag Shannon and myself in the comments. We'll be sure to comment back and to thank you for doing that. With that said, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show here today. Continue to leave comments, even if you're watching in playback. Shannon and I will be on the lookout for those later on this evening. And with that said, we hope you have a wonderful afternoon and take care. We'll see you all.